Okay, we're going to go on to our next story. This is from WBEZ, titled Chicago Police Describe Total Burnout After Canceled Days Off in 12-Hour Shifts. And I do think there is something to that. I think Brown is totally out of his league and doesn't know what to do. And I think most police chiefs in many urban areas are right now out of their league, trying to stop the violence that has come up from the pandemic. That said, burnout's definitely an issue. You can't keep canceling days off. You can't keep them working 12-hour shifts. Tired officers on the street, exhausted officers on the street, it's not a good thing. So let's look at some of the stuff from this article. And I quote, "Already this year, about 400 people have been murdered and more than 2,000 have been shot in Chicago. Murder numbers are on pace with last year's tally, which was among Chicago's highest. Over the past weekend, from Friday evening to Sunday, 56 people were shot and 11 killed, according to police." Okay, not good. But how about a rephrase of that? Murder numbers are on pace with last year's tally, instead of which was among Chicago's highest, which was approaching the total for a recent highest year in 2016. Oh, okay. Doesn't it put a little bit of a different spin on the violence numbers now? If you know last year's numbers, as bad as they were less than 16. But somehow now it seems like there's a much greater hurricane of calls for how bad it is compared to how bad it was in 16. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, also understand the pandemic is going on, and there's progressive prosecutor in office putting in bond reform. The sheriff doesn't like it. The police chief doesn't like it. The mayor doesn't like it. Is that why there's all this chorus of problems? Like, the violence isn't good, but when you talk about one of the highest numbers ever, well, not really, my friend, because in the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s, there were 980 murders in Chicago or something like that a year. 980. We're still a couple hundred short from there. It is the middle, end of July? It's July 23rd, so we're 6 months in, and about 400 murders. So we're going to be under 800, theoretically, if they keep going, although it's starting to trickle down every month a little, tick down a little bit. So we probably won't be anywhere near 800, but let's just say we hit 8. That's still 180 short of whatever the high in the early 90s was. Highest in the most recent years? Okay, but 2006 was higher. 2016 was higher. Oh, it's not that it's good, it's about context. That's the problem. I continue. Nearly every officer interviewed, they only interviewed 10. And that's great for a news report, that's a lot, but it isn't science. How did you find those 10? If you're snowballing, or the people you know, did you pick them out randomly? Did you get them from one officer to the other, so they just give you their friends and they all have the same mindset? We'd like to know that. There's nothing in this article about how they found them. Nearly every officer interviewed by BEZ said morale at the department is worse than they've seen it. When one officer, a 16-year veteran, was asked to rank morale on a scale from 1 to 10, she said, "Can I use a negative number, like negative 500, because that's my answer?" Oh, I mean, one thing that always gets me down and keeps me up at night is the morale of the Chicago Police Department. Now, I don't want to be mean, but once again, the public didn't murder Laquan McDonald. The public isn't murdering black and brown men all over the country all the time, many unarmed. How about Breonna Taylor? You're paying the price for your actions. That's what you're getting. The only currency a police department has is legitimacy. That's it, legitimacy. If the public thinks you're legitimate, you get treated well. If you lose your legitimacy, you're done. When hasn't the Chicago Police Department lost their legitimacy? Let's go back to the 70s. John Burge got fired in the early 93s. What did the FOP do, the police union? They tried to put up, Burge was fired for torturing suspects, put them on death row. Somewhere between 100 and 200. Not on death row, but just tortured and put in prison, right? What did the Fraternal Order of Police do? An organization with absolutely no soul and no credibility whatsoever. They tried to put up a float in the St. Patrick's Day Parade to honor John Burge. You have no legitimacy. You lost it. It was not stolen from you. You lost it. Not actually every individual officer. You lost it as a profession. And you've lost it as a department. And you've done it over and over and over. And you keep bringing stuff up. You keep doing it. You keep covering up. Over and over and over again. All you have is legitimacy. You lost it. Oh, it's not my fault. Listen, good cops. It is your fault. It is your fault. Because you guys see, you guys, men, women, you see the misconduct and you do nothing. Time and time and time and time and time again. You know what to do. You cover up. You lost your legitimacy and you're crying. That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. These are cops being upset that the public has negative feelings about them, or they're getting negative feedback from people in communities where they work because they've lost their legitimacy. No one cares. No one respects you. You lost it. It is your fault. When the murder of Laquan McDonald happened, when Jason Van Dyke put his empty gun back in his no bullets left, back in his holster, he should have immediately they should have taken his belt, put the cuffs on him, and put him in the car. Because he murdered Laquan McDonald. And every officer on that scene knew it. What did they do? They lied. They covered up. They filed false police reports. They probably did something to the damn Burger King camera. That's what they did. You don't think that affects how the public views you? You're insane. You're insane. What is happening on the street now that these cops don't like is that the public now has video cameras in their pocket. There isn't more abuse now. It isn't worse now. What is happening now, ladies and gentlemen, is these people, the people that are being victimized have cameras. You think when George Floyd, I can't remember the cop's name, Derek Chauvin, put his knee on George Floyd in front of everyone, in front of all those people crying to get his knee off his neck. And he did that, and he did it with absolutely no concern. That wasn't the first time. Now we know it isn't, but he had no concern. You know why? Because he had gone up and been raised in an apartment where people didn't have the camera, so he didn't have to give a shit. Because he knew the officers on the scene would cover up for him. And that's what they did even now. Even now. You're complaining about losing your legitimacy? I don't care. It's your fault. You're going to have to earn it back. You're not doing it by complaining. You're not doing it by whining. I don't care. I just don't. I can find no sympathy for you. Even for the good cops. The good cops are the biggest problem. Because if the good cops did their job and turned on the bad cops, they'd be gone and the good cops would have reign over the department. They vastly outnumber them. Vastly outnumber them. They don't do it because it's a cultural thing. They can't do it. We got to stick together. I don't understand the cult. I've never gotten it. I worked at UPS. I worked in the jewelry business. I worked teaching University of Illinois Chicago and University of St. Francis. If someone was doing a bad job, if another jeweler ripped you off or something happened to UPS, someone else did it, I don't care. Let them go. That isn't me. I don't understand the cult thinking. Okay. To use a phrase that I saw on Facebook, and I can't remember whose name, it's propaganda. That's what this kind of is. It's kind of propaganda from the cops. It's propaganda. I like that phrase. I'm going to steal it. Carl Nyberg, I got that off of Facebook. It's propaganda. To some degree. They are burnt out, so let's not say that. They are, because Brown is over his head and he's doing the wrong tactics, so there's no doubt about that. But that's not everything that's going on in this article. So let's look. There's something we have to pay attention to around what it feels like for us to be grouping the police so broadly. This is a psychologist that's doing business with the CPD and has been trained mental health. I think it's the national. I have to look at her I can't remember the name of the organization. I don't want to missay it. But this is someone who's working, I think it's a National Mental Health Association or something like that, and working at CPD and officer wellness. Here's that they're quoting her. There's something that we have to pay attention to around what it feels like for us to be grouping the police so broadly. And what it feels like for officers who are doing this good work. There's so many people monitoring them. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be accountability at all. I'm saying let's think about what it feels like. And I think that conversation is missing a lot from the police reform conversation. What it feels like. Yeah, hell no. How about this answer? Hell no. They kill people on the street. They're the only ones with the authority. They have to be monitored. If they want to be treated differently than the bad cops, then they got to stand up to the bad cops. Don't group them all together. Why? No one on that street, when Jason Van Dyke killed Laquan McDonald, no one stood up. What are we supposed to say? Oh, we're so sorry that he killed someone in front of you. Don't worry, we want to make sure you feel okay. So we're just going to let Jason Van Dyke get back on the street. He can kill as many people as he wants. They committed a crime. Their job is to stop people from committing a crime. They saw Jason Van Dyke commit a murder. They did nothing on video. The public don't like that? Of course, you're in a democracy. They're not going to like it, and you have to deal with those repercussions. Tell them to start turning in and turning on the bad cops. Then the public will have more feelings for them. Sorry. Because the reality is, they're more afraid of breaking rank in the culture of cover-up within the department, and this is every department in the U.S., this isn't just CPD. They're more worried about that than they are about the public not liking them. And that's a problem. You can't ask a public that is saying, here, please police our communities. We'll give you the ability to do it, but please do it in a safe and healthy and manner so you're not shooting people that shouldn't be murdered. And then they murder people and you're saying, oh, well, we don't want you to feel bad about it. Frustrating. I'm going to go to comments for a question. They keep saying there are good cops. How do I know if I'm looking at a good cop? Aren't we safest if we treat them all with caution? Yeah, and that's a sad thing. Hillary, I can't disagree, and that's a really sad thing. And I stick to this statement. The vast majority of cops try to do a good job, do as good a job as they can. They're, especially in Chicago, they're horrifically poorly trained, they're poorly equipped, and on and on and on. Now, but they're still the problem because they don't turn in the bad cops. They don't turn in the bad cops. That's the root of the problem. If they want to be treated differently, they got to start turning in the bad cops. But they won't. It's 2021. They never have. They did it a little bit in the Chauvin case, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That was on video. They knew Chauvin was gone. He knew he was a goner. So that's why when they got called to testify, they weren't going to lie for him. They knew he was a goner. If there was no videotape, they would have lied and lied and lied. And Minneapolis Police Department lied that night. They released some kind of bullshit statement about how he died. About how George Floyd died. That did not reflect anything of what happened on the street. Because that's what they do. They all get together and they all lie. That's what they do, good and bad. I don't think the good want to, but the culture forces them to. And until that changes, ladies and gentlemen, your legitimacy, it's gone. You don't like it? I don't care. I don't care. You lost it. You were given it. You had it. Your actions lost it. And you're in an age now where and this is happening all over the country all the time. That's why these videos pop up on social media all the time. There are so many black men and brown men killed, and now women with Breonna Taylor and others, killed by the police all over the country, many for no reason, or some reason, but really like the Anthony Alvarez that should have never resulted in a shooting, that should have never been a foot chase. I can't keep it all. I can't keep all their names. I could remember the ones in Chicago. Now I've got them blaring on my social media all the time. It's not like that didn't happen. It used to happen 2 years ago. There's just no video. Poor babies. I'm going to finish this out. It's almost like they've been trained by the media and by the general public and even elected officials to a large part because police are portrayed so negatively, the officer said. Wrong. And we're working on the science to disprove that. That is a conspiracy theory that runs rampant in the police department. That they're just portrayed every day in the media so negatively. There is no science to back that up. I'm working on the science to prove that is wrong with science and data. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That is completely wrong. Do the big events get massive coverage? Yes, but they're covered day to day very well. They just don't see it because it's just part of the fabric now. We don't even understand it. You would be amazed at how many times the media in Chicago every day quotes the police as a credible source on crime and violence. Dozens and dozens of times. And that's positive coverage. The police don't see it, but it is. So, last quote, now I'll get the Hillary's on the chat's got another question or comment I want to read, but let me get to the last one. They don't want you to chase somebody on foot, and they want to punish you if for some reason they think you did something wrong. An officer with 28 years on the job. Hey, buddy, it's on video a lot of the times. They don't have to think you did something wrong. You did something wrong. It happens a lot. It's possible. Listen, I have said, and I agree with Alderman Spizzato a little bit on this, believe it or not. The Adam Toledo shooting was horrific, but it probably wasn't a bad shooting, given all the circumstances. And don't slow down the video to 1/1,000,000th of a second. That don't work on the scene when you're a cop and if someone has a gun. Don't work. I wish it didn't happen, but it's not a bad shooting. The Anthony Alvarez shooting, very bad. Laquan McDonald, flat out murder. Okay? And they don't have to see this as they think. We're working on a study. It'll probably be out in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We are taking a look at the police accountability from 1980 through 2020 in the city of Chicago. We're getting the numbers. We're going to show you where there is or isn't data and just how this mantra, this thinking in the cult of the blue cult of policing, especially in Chicago, is that we can be fired for anything. Bullshit. That is completely wrong. Completely wrong. All right. Before I end this segment, let's get to Hillary real quick. Even their mistakes are traumatic for people. Remembering Anjanette Young. Of course there are. Of course. Yes, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. Now, see, if the police had actually done their homework and did the job like they're supposed to and follow their regulations, Anjanette Young would have never happened. But yes, you're right. Their mistakes, even when they're the best intention, the police were doing exactly what we want and what we all think should be done at that moment of time, given the circumstances. If they make a mistake, their mistakes are incredibly impactful. That doesn't fit the mindset. It doesn't break through to the indoctrination that goes on in the academy, and certainly not when they get into the street. You can only trust your partner and cover up for everyone and cover everyone's back. That's the way it goes, and that doesn't break through their thinking.